Welcome to Reformation 2017, Re-Fermenting the Church, Part 3B. My name is Ron Rood. In this Part 3, the heart of these 12 Ron Talks, I'm suggesting that after 2,000 years of the Church's existence and ministry, and 500 years since the Protestant Reformation began, when Martin Luther posted his famous 95 Theses in 1517, that there is a re-fermentation process going on, out of which may be emerging an alternative version or brew of Christian theology and practice. Not only are medievalism's worldviews and bodies of knowledge and questions, including those of Martin Luther and the Reformers, not ours today, but I've become less and less sure that the questions and responses themselves of both the medieval Catholic Church and the medieval Reformation churches really help us get to the heart and soul of God's worldview-altering and paradigm-shifting story. That is, God's story of life and God's story of Jesus. That's a pretty arrogant thing to say, I know. But for those who are interested and maybe even a little courageous, I invite you to explore with me an alternative version of Christianity. So in the previous talk, 3A, we began looking at the natural sciences and the unfolding and evolving of God's story of life. A story that is incredibly vast and marvelously ancient. We need to remind ourselves that when we use the word ancient, we don't mean like ancient Greece or ancient Rome or even ancient China. No, God's story of the universe is on a much grander scale than this. It of course includes our own particular home planet, Earth, which is 4.6 billion years old, wherein single-celled life appeared about 3.8 billion years ago, and multiple-cell life about 3 billion years later. Once life learned how to cooperate sufficiently, it figured out ways over time to move from the ocean onto land, producing new species like reptiles and dinosaurs, and small mammals that have hair and do live births and have mammaries, with larger mammals finding new niches within which to flourish about 65 million years ago after the dinosaurs died out, due to a 6-mile wide asteroid crashing into the Earth near the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, unleashing tons and tons of debris into the atmosphere, including dangerous levels of carbon dioxide that had been safely sequestered in the limestone of the ocean floor. These heightened CO2 levels wiped out large swaths of life, including the dinosaurs, which is one of the reasons today's marvelous scientists are so severely warning us about troubling and rising carbon dioxide levels. These coming now from massive quantities of fossil fuel emissions being spewed into the atmosphere by humans like yours truly. And of course, primates have been around for about 20 million years. It's amazing to think how we share a planet with about 20 million other species in God's community of life. Yes, in the Creator's household there are many dwelling places, and we as humans get to reside in one of these dwelling places. So when did our particular species, Homo sapiens, arrive on the scene? When did we become part of God's amazing Tov world? Well, we are mammals and are one of about 250 primates that exist today. And we have some interesting cousins or predecessor species that dedicated paleoanthropologists have been studying for the past century, including Australopithecus, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, that emerged about 3 to 4 million years ago, and about 13 others that have since died out. These cousins had kids, raised families, hunted and worked the soil, found and made shelters, taught their children, traded with others, loved, shared, educated themselves, fought at times, and explored the earth. Homo sapiens seem to have been around for about 200,000 years, with a more modern version with new language skills and new capacities for symbolic thinking and even artistic abilities, emerging about 70,000 years before our time. As humans, we are developed in some ways in comparison to other species on this planet. And we are underdeveloped in other ways. For example, we cannot fly, let alone backwards like a hummingbird, or live under the sea. We are clumsy on our feet compared to a mountain goat or a mule. We have terrible hand-eye coordination compared to a squirrel. And in terms of speed, we rank about in the middle. Faster than a cow, slower than a cheetah. By the way, a cheetah can run 60 miles an hour and a gazelle 40 miles an hour. So who wins? Well, a cheetah can run 60 miles an hour, but only for about 60 seconds. If she doesn't catch the gazelle, then she is totally exhausted, depleted, used up for quite a while. And a series of misses can cause her health to severely deplete. The gazelle, on the other hand, only goes 40 miles an hour, but can run forever and can dodge with incredible agility. Humans also can change color like a fish, or tree toad, or chameleon, or store water like a tortoise, Bactrian camel, or saguaro cactus. In fact, some camels can go up to 10 months without drinking water. You and I would fall down and die in just a few days. Hawks have eyesight far superior to ours. And some dogs have capacities of smell 40 times that of ours. But what we have is sufficient for being human. So, what does it mean to be human? Evolutionary biologists tell us that our bodies are made up of trillions and trillions of cells. But by number, only 10% of these cells are me, Ron, and the other 90% of these cells are microbes and organisms and bacteria and other fungi. So what does it mean to be me if only 10% of me is me? And really, I am a colony of organisms. What does it mean to be human? The Bible has some things to say about this. There are two creation stories in the book of Genesis. The earliest one, written recently about 900 BCE, is found in Genesis chapter 2. In this parable, the Adam, the human creature, is created out of the Adamah, the soil. Notice the similarity of these words. We come from the ground, like all other creatures. We are earthlings. We are from the humus. We are dirtlings. Now, I have no idea what the biblical storyteller was getting at here, and I haven't found anyone else who really knows for sure either. But this sure seems to fit well with what the science of evolutionary biology is teaching us. When I take a teaspoon of soil and look at it under a microscope, I see billions of microbes and life forms. Like science, this Genesis story appears to be teaching us that the soil is our family of origin. The later creation story in Genesis 1, written about 500 BCE, in this parable, there is a curious exchange in chapter 1, verse 26. On the sixth day, the storyteller puts into the mouth of God, Elohim, the words, "Let us make humankind in our image." Biblical scholars have wondered for a long time who us is and who is our. The Trinity, perhaps, though this wouldn't really make sense for a Hebrew text. A heavenly court of some kind? Or is this a literary device known as the royal we? And who is God speaking to? Well, here's a thought. Maybe on this sixth day, the Creator is speaking to the other creatures that God has already made, the birds and the cattle and the fish and the bacteria, and now says to them, okay, let us now make this next creature in our image. So humans are created in the image of God and in the image of all other creatures. And we forget either at our peril, which may be the reason we are behaving so badly as a species in our time. We are disconnected from our family of origin. Like other plants and animals, humans migrate. And you can see that our species comes from East Africa about 200,000 years ago, and we have migrated to various parts of the planet. Migrating patterns are tracked by examining bone fossils and gene pool markers, archaeological evidence, sedimentary deposits, linguistic and language analysis, tool comparisons, and even the spread of certain diseases that only humans carry, such as hepatitis 6 and certain bacteria, and even lice. There are tens of thousands of ways to be human, including a variety of economic systems, religious and philosophical creeds, sexual roles, gender identities, and family structures. A way of life for one culture may involve hunting and fishing, and for another, gathering edible gourds and wild berries. Certain environments coax some people to plant vegetables and hunt large mammals and erect buildings, and others to harvest wild grains and domesticate animals like llamas and cows and chickens. Nomadic people live in the lowlands during the winter and the upper altitudes through summer. Most cultures lean toward patriarchal expressions of authority and lineage, but others, such as the Hopi and Iroquois and the Huron, lean toward the matriarchal. What is normative for one group depends on how well their way of living complements God's garden in their locale. When it doesn't, they move on or die out. God's primary mission has been going on for 13.7 billion years. It's recorded in nature's scriptures and even includes 200,000 years of our own species, Homo sapiens, existence. Recently, just a few thousand years ago, I'm suggesting that God took on a secondary mission, and we will look at this in the next Ron Talk, Part 3C.